knows where you are, it exists where you are.
An intentional journey to open up the pathways
To connect us to something bigger. It helps everybody in the equation.
has been the magic of the people, and it's passed from person to person.
You have to follow through. You have to do the thing. Like happy, safe place.
Is that your logic, or was that something you were told?
Focus on your craft and your practice. Just ask me why. Why in general?
Can you unteach yourself something that society has taught you?
Mystical experiences will always be different.
Your body is your temple.
You've probably been doing certain things your whole life.
You need nothing else other than what you're in right now.
This is Georgina. This is Nike.
And this is Temperance.
And welcome to Occultism with a Side of Salt.
Hello, this is Georgina.
This is Nike.
This is Temperance.
And welcome back to Occultism with a Side of Salt. Today we're going to be talking about the algorithm in magic. I feel like recently a lot of people have been dropping hot takes about the intersection of occultism and technology, with specifically reference to the social media algorithms. From some people claiming to worship the algorithm as a god, to some saying that technomancy is the true form of witchcraft, and all other forms of witchcraft are incorrect. More discussions about chaos magic and futurism in the esoteric community. Beliefs about what gets traction, and sort of using traction as a way to fuel the self. Generally, people making hot takes just to generate outrage, to gain followers. This is going to touch a little bit on grifting, because that kind of intersects with this. Algorithmic engagement, and sort of how social media algorithms and technology intersect with occultism in the modern age. So let's break into it.
I just want to start us off strong. I feel like I say this every episode, right? I say, like, I want to start us off strong, and then I say some bullshit. So today's bullshit is that I recently came across a take. Now, I would like to phrase this with the understanding that one person's take on the internet is not a community take. This is a take by one person, and it is not like a community widely discussed take, but it is something that a lot of people saw and interacted with, so I'm bringing it up. The take was that if you don't use technology and crypto, you're not a real occultist or witch, you're basically a LARPer. That was the take. And I was like, wow, algorithm understander over here. Like, I just, I don't understand that take. I don't see where it's valid. They equated technology to a form of magic, which, okay, if you don't understand how technology works, I guess I could see your argument, right? Because, like, I'm sitting upstairs, my Wi-Fi router is downstairs, and somehow through the void of nothingness, the internet is connected to my computer now from the router downstairs. Like, there is, like, that thing where if you don't really understand how it's working, I could see your argument for that, but don't laugh at me.
Yeah, seeing technology as magic is interesting but incorrect. Like, the whole point of magic is that, we talk about, like, science and magic intersecting and where there's sort of gaps on either side, more one than the other. And we can know how technology works and still have magic associated with it. Saying that technology is magic, like, one, is wrong, but two, like, the take that we saw could have stopped at the first half of technology is cutting edge. I think it's really important for witchcraft. I think it's the future. Like, you can say all that. You can say that technology is the future of witchcraft. Sure. And, that people should use it. If that's your take, sure. But saying that you're a LARPer if you don't use technology, if you don't use, like, specifically saying if you don't use crypto, you're a LARPer in witchcraft, that's a really weird take, because crypto's not really used in magic. So it's a very strange direction to go in with your take of, like, if you don't use crypto and get into the crypto space and interact with all those crypto bros, then you're not a witch.
Yeah.
Okay.
The crypto take I find very weird, because cryptocurrency is such a new invention, and occultism, if you guys did not know, has been around for thousands of years. Crypto has not. Also, like, the types of magic that would interact with crypto are really limited, right? So things like Thelema, Hermeticism, traditional witchcraft, Stregaria, Slavic folk magic, whatever, really don't intersect with crypto, right? Like, there's no sort of folk magic Slavic practice that's going to be like, yes, going to use blockchain now. Really, the only practices that would intersect with it are forms of postmodern magic, and chaos magic, really. So the types of people who would be interacting with crypto magic would be a very limited percentage. Of course, a lot of modern occultists, people who got into the occult after the 90s and onwards, have a really strong chaos magic bend to them generally, but that's such a niche thing. Tech magic is actually kind of controversial. There are a lot of people who don't really take it seriously and kind of think of tech magic as like Tumblr witches from 2014 using emoji spells. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of a lot of people's association when it comes to tech magic. So it's a very limited range of practices that would do this. As well, there are a lot of practices that aren't about technological progress, but kind of going backwards, right? Like, you've got things like traditionalist occultism or folk magic, where it's like connecting to your roots and your history and your heritage. Like, someone who's a root worker probably isn't going to be worried about the future. They're trying to connect to their past and their ancestors, not the other way around. I think to say that it's inherent is ridiculous, because maybe if you're a really postmodern chaos magician who works with things like the Ellis sigil or like doing big long distance rituals through FaceTime, then maybe sure, technology is integral to your craft, but that's such a small percentage of all of occultism. It's kind of a ridiculous claim.
Well, and there's also like that common thread of people saying like I have to get away from technology, like technology being a distraction, social media being a distraction. You know, we talk about online occultism versus actual physical practice of occultism being super different spaces, online witchcraft not being the same as like quote unquote real witchcraft. Yeah, I'm one of those people that technology, I use technology for certain parts, and I think that using technology for magic is valid. It's just not something that I do, because I'm one of those people that, you know, technology is really distracting for, because if I have my phone in my hand and I'm trying to use it for something, the immediate connection is social media and to jump onto that stuff, and it's an immediate distraction from that. I can use tech in certain ways, but you know, saying that if your craft does not involve technology, it's not valid is one, really stupid, and two, super classist.
Yeah, well, I mean, I heard my friend Selkie Girl, who hosts Kabbalista, said this. I believe it was her. If it was not her, I'm so sorry. That scrolling through TikTok and social media feeds is in essence the opposite of meditation, because meditation is about kind of being in the moment and connecting to the higher things, whereas scrolling through a feed of outrage, thirst traps, memes, etc., is your mind going through so much at once and being so overstimulated. That's sort of the opposite of a lot of mystical practices.
Well, my concern with this take and you know the direction that it's heading is, we know that the alt right hides within these crypto spaces and hides in plain sight. Really, it's very prevalent. So for me, when I see someone in our community specifically, right, like we're not a finance community, we're an occult community, and our community has a long history with white supremacy. So when I see, you know, people come in and who had never previously talked about crypto, and you know, I get concerned about where they're getting this information from and what circles they're hanging out in. Are they in crypto because they're into finance? Are they in crypto because they fell down some alt-right rabbit hole? Is QAnon involved? These are just things I get concerned about, and it's a red flag to me. I'm not saying that that is every person. Of course, thousands and probably millions of people use crypto without ever falling down the alt-right pipeline, but we are a different community. We are a subsect that already has problems with the alt-right. So I don't know.
Well, I was somebody who got into crypto. I'm not so much anymore. I own some crypto, and I've been watching it just as like a trying to experiment with it. I started doing a little bit of that crypto astrology stuff. Brought up. I mean, I'll admit I used to be a fan of Marin Altman before all that stuff came out, and now I'm not. But she was somebody who like alerted me to it, and the fact that like, you know, that's a thing that you could do. And I saw other people doing crypto astrology too. But I wanted to get into it because I thought it was interesting, and like I think learning finance is important, and I think it's good to at least like understand how, you know, like crypto and how stocks and stuff at least at a base level works. But it's really easy to, you know, get into the crypto spaces. I mean, it's actually what happened with Marin to a certain degree. Not saying she's all right, but she got into crypto, started hanging out with all the crypto bros. All the crypto bros are super capitalist, but also super sexist, racist, homophobic, transphobic. She started making like she made some of these before, but you saw more of it after, when she started interacting with these crypto bros, making more of the transphobic jokes, making these really like off-color jokes that were not okay. And it's really easy because it's so normalized and accepted there. So you sort of get into this culture, it's how everybody there is talking, and then it just becomes normalized to you, and you sort of fall down this rabbit hole. And it's really, really easy to get caught up in alt-right sentiments without realizing that it's alt-right sentiments, because so much of the central thing about what you talk about is finance and crypto and whatever. The little sprinklings can become more and more and more without you ever noticing that you've sort of snowballed into this alt-right place.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of the discussions of like this type of stuff where people really, check out crypto astrology, they're really into like Dogecoin and stuff like that, are Wall Street Bets and Biz on 4chan, which these communities kind of have a political slant to them, right? Like they've got this very, at first seeming libertarian sort of lean, which for reference, I was a libertarian for a long time. I don't think I mentioned that online, but like I was definitely like a right libertarian at one point. And I think libertarianism is not bad, but the reality is, because I did spend time in libertarian spaces, there's a pipeline from right libertarianism into the authoritarian alt-right. Because they get, what happens is these people, they get into this type of stuff, they become really hardline capitalist, they're like anti-regulation, decentralization, blockchain, like they get really opposed to like controlled finance and stuff like that. And so they start really being against regulation, and this leads you into like right libertarian spaces. And a lot of these people pick up right-wing social views, and then they realize that a libertarian society would not be able to enforce that, because a libertarian society would be so decentralized that it wouldn't be able to enforce these values. So they become something like a Hoppian, and Hoppianism is like a wormhole up into the alt-right and into staunch social conservatism, paleo-conservatism, and it escalates from there. So that tends to be how it goes with people. Kind of Hoppianism is like the gateway drug to like alt-right radicalization from the libertarian right. So it's slow, right? Like I think a lot of people who are into crypto stuff are definitely not alt-right, but I think it can happen, especially because you've already got this stuff in our community. The occult, especially the New Age, is sort of an alt-right pipeline, which, listen to our alt-right episode. Please listen to that, because we go into great depth about the spiritual pipeline. And so it can create problems. And I can see sort of how crypto bros are entering occult discourse in a weird way. You're kind of seeing more and more of these crypto bros getting into the occult, which is great. I mean, I think more people should get into the occult. I think crypto astrology is really cool. I think tech magic is really cool. Personally, I don't really care about crypto, but I see why people like it. I think it's cool that people are exploring this. But I do think it can pull more people in that we may not necessarily want in the community. And I think opening the like can of worms for all occultists should get into crypto could, people will connect this stuff, right? They'll connect the super far right ideas in crypto spaces to the far ideas in occult spaces about like metagenetics, root races, all that stuff. It connects to people, and it creates a coherent worldview of radicalization.
If your take is that you are not a real occultist and you're not a real witch unless you're into crypto, it's a red flag for me. It just is. There's no basis for that. So why would you state it from an authoritative point of view of like, this is the truth, everything else is fake? I just, that's a troubling sentiment to be in our community.
Well, it's that way with anything.
What do they think about past occultists?
Right.
Canceled.
Like, well, and my thought is like, you can't just make a statement that because you do something and it's integral to your practice and you wouldn't be a witch without it. It'd be like saying you're not a real occultist if you don't use astrology, or you're not a real occultist if you don't use music in your craft, or you're not a real occultist if XYZ, whatever part of the like Irish paganism is not going to have the same stuff as Native American like spirituality and religious stuff. Like, just because you don't do stuff the same way doesn't mean that it's not valid. It just means it's a different practice. You can't just blanket statement say you're a LARPer if you don't worship the Morrigan. Like, okay, not everybody's going to, because not everybody's practices are going to involve that. Not everybody's practices are going to be even remotely close to doing that. That doesn't make it invalid. Just because your ass wants to do something doesn't mean that other people not doing that doesn't make them valid. There's so much more to it than that. Doing that with anything is stupid. And the point I've seen with this especially is that not only does it feel stupid to do it like for those reasons of, not everybody's practice is going to be the same, but also a lot of people avoid that stuff because like technology and crypto is so inherently tied to capitalism that it doesn't make them feel connected to the earth. It makes them feel so disconnected to involve technology. They don't have to because for a lot of people, the whole point is like connection to self and connection to earth and nature and magic, and technology is that opposite end spectrum. So why would they do that? Why would they get involved with technology if it makes them feel disconnected from everything that they're doing? What would be the point?
Yeah, it's really interesting because for a long time, I feel like earth-based paganism kind of dominated occult spaces, right? A lot of people who are pagans are what you call earth-based pagans, whereas this technomancy stuff tends to come from chaos magic, which chaos magic is not inherently like religious, and it's definitely not inherently earth-based. Chaos magic is much more about an experimental mode of exploration of occultism, belief shifting, ideas about sort of thoughts form reality and all sorts of stuff. So those are actually very different esoteric camps. Chaos magician could have earth-based elements, but they're completely different like understandings. So it's very weird to impose this modern chaos framework upon everyone, particularly earth-based pagans. So I know there was discussion after this take came out about, is it classist to say you have to be in cryptocurrency to be an occultist? And does that like gatekeep? Because I think yes, it is inherently capitalistic. You could argue that Bitcoin is in a way like different than regular capitalism that have to do with corporations, more independent or whatever. That's a shaky take. I don't agree with it. But some people could make that argument because you're giving back to the little guy. Like a lot of far left people were really happy about the Wall Street bets thing because they were fucking up hedge funds. I called it Capcom, capitalist communism, like as a joke. It's that the capitalists are happy that they're getting money, and the communists are like, bring down the 1%, whatever. So like yeah, but it is classist to say you have to be in crypto to be an occultist because crypto is expensive to get into. Like if you're someone who's just making ends meet and you're into like let's say hoodoo or Appalachian folk magic, and you're using like what you get at your dollar store and you're barely making ends meet, and occultism is how you're taking back your power, like you won't be able to get into crypto. That's not accessible for you. Does that
What are you
make that
doing with that
person
crypto? Like, I'm
less
just
of a witch?
wondering. Like, what are you like? I would really love for someone to tell me, like, yeah, what are they doing? Praying to Bitcoin? Like, how are they using these in their occult practice?
See, I'm with you. I don't think it's using crypto for magic. I think it's the opposite because that's somewhat what like the crypto astrology was. It's using magic for crypto. But that inherently like crypto is not the thing that is the magical part. It's still like not involved in that way because you can use like with crypto astrology just as an example, you can use astrology for fucking anything. You can use astrology to elect when is going to be a good date to get a new job or have an interview or have a meeting for something for like negotiating a raise. But the raise, like if you're using astrology to make an election for getting a raise, the raise is not the magical part. It's the using astrology to elect the correct date for that. Same way with crypto. Using magic for crypto does not make the crypto magical. Just like getting a job is not magical or getting a raise is not magical. You can use magic to influence it. It's an A to B, but not B to A.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, are they like what using cryptos as like a macro sigil, or like working with the egregore of Dogecoin, or like because doing petitions to get good results with crypto isn't crypto magic? Or are they implying that like technology is magic? Which, if so, that really goes against the Thelemic definition of magic, which is using your will to enact change. So yeah, crypto isn't inherently magic. You could use spells to make crypto work. I guess maybe they're arguing like the sigils of the numbers that make up the crypto are like gematria. I think I'm reading too far into this. I think I'm trying too hard.
Well,
to,
no,
like,
but
answer
You're
that
really
for
trying too
them.
hard.
I think genuinely that this take comes from a point of view where you don't understand how magic and occultism functions and works, because if you're saying like you have to be in crypto or you have to be into technology to be a real occultist, you're basically saying that the point of occultism and witchcraft is to get money or have like this product at the end, right? You're saying like you're not a real witch unless you're in crypto. Okay, well, crypto at the end is the money, right? So your whole goal of witchcraft and occultism, your whole goal A to B is do occultism, get money because you're getting a form of finance.
Yeah.
But if you have a historical understanding of witchcraft and occultism, your goal is not to receive money. Your goal is a more introspective journey. It's a divine purpose. It's a whole lot more than that, and it becomes a part of your personality versus buying a car or buying a house. Like there, it's a very platonic view on magic.
Yeah, maybe it's because I have a bit of a mysticism bent, but I feel like magic and mysticism, like the real goal is to sort of find your true will and unite with your understanding of divinity. I think that's the ultimate end goal. I think practical results magic has a lot of value and is useful, but that's not everything. And to say that's everything erases a lot of schools of practice. And as I think when people are new, they get that idea, right? Like they get into magic to get shiny new toys, but then they realize like the depth of spirituality. Like it's so common for us to discuss shadow work, right? The point of shadow work is not to get rich. The point of shadow work is to understand yourself and develop as a human being and self-actualize. I think to say magic is all about getting money is reductive, and I think that goes against so many schools of mysticism and thought, especially Eastern occultism.
When it reeks so much of classism and privilege, right? Like I've done enough looking into crypto to know, like some of the videos I was watching was people talking about you want X% of increase when you're like buying and selling or whatever, and so it's like, okay, well I'm looking for 3 to 5%. 7 is like A plus plus, and I can make X amount of money with it. But when you do the calculations of how much money they're using to invest and essentially like play with and be willing to burn, one of the guys I saw was like, all right, I'm going to show you how I make all my money for the week, and I'm going to do it in like 5 minutes. And it was through one trade that was 7%. Yeah, I did the calculations. He was using $100,000. So
Yeah.
being
Well,
able to get into crypto to make more than like $1 or being able to invest at all, like the amount that I've invested is fucking potatoes compared to other people. It was, I think, like $100 originally, but not everybody's going to have $100. Not everybody has $10 to invest. So saying like you have to have money to do witchcraft essentially is what that take is, saying that if you're not doing crypto and you're not using crypto for magic, however the fuck you would do that, that's so classist. The whole point of a lot, especially folk magic, it's magic of the people, it's magic of the downtrodden. Not everybody's gonna have fucking money to invest in crypto. It's such privilege to be able to say that it's integral to use crypto in your magic, because holy shit, you just don't have the perspective to understand that not everybody's going to do this. Fucking everybody I talked to was like, yeah, the minimum investment most people make into crypto to start out is $1,000. Most people are not going to have $1,000.
Let's talk about what people do. Let's talk about people doing r/Wall Street Bet or 4chan Biz. What these people will do is they'll be working class and they'll take all the money they have, or like
It's called
70%.
YOLOing. It has a term.
And they'll put all of it into a stock or a crypto. And sometimes these people, I've literally seen lose their house. I saw one person lose their mother's house because they bet their parent, they were like an adult, but they like had like connections to their parents' finances. I don't know how it worked, but they like lost their family's homes. Like this type of behavior, I mean, sure, if it works for you, that's great, but it's really risky and can really mess people up. And I think when you say that you have to do this, because a large portion of our community is working class, specifically in the folk magic sector. Less so in like ceremonial magic, but it's still a thing, right? Telling these people they have to get into crypto, they're probably going to go on r/Wall Street Bet or Biz on 4chan and realize like, oh, I've got to put in this much, so I'm going to put in the money that I need to spend to buy my groceries for the month. And they're going to get really, hurt financially, and it's going to cause serious problems.
Well, I think we all just kind of, stated multiple times in different ways that there is no real conceivable way, at least that the three of us can figure out, that you would use crypto for occultism. You could use occultism for crypto, but you can't use crypto for occultism. It's not a two-way street there. So, that comes into the algorithm understanders and how these people specifically manipulate algorithms, and then they call it chaos magic, right? They're like, oh, like I'm getting all these views and clicks and blah 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 blah. Well, no, you're saying something intentionally inflammatory that is going to upset a lot of people, and you're in a position of having however many number thousands of followers, and you're purposefully manipulating the algorithm because we know the algorithm doesn't really care, right? The algorithm cares that you're receiving comments or the video's being shared. It doesn't objectively look at, because it's a computer program, it doesn't objectively look at the video and say this is good or this is bad. It says this is getting clicked on, this is getting commented on. And every comment, even if it's a bad comment, is an engagement for that algorithm. And these people know this and knowingly manipulate you and your emotions, because you're going to be like, I'm not a LARPer, I'm a witch. Just because I'm not into crypto doesn't mean I'm a LARPer. And so you're going to comment that, or you're going to share the video with someone, and they're going to view that video and share it with someone else that has now been offended. And it's going to continue to boost this in the algorithm. And it's not a form of chaos magic, it's a form of manipulation.
Yeah, a lot of people, and I'm gonna be honest, I've done it before. Will say things that they know will get like if their views are down, let's say, or their engagement is not rising at the speed they want it to, they'll make a video or tweet saying something really far out there or about a super hard discourse topic. They'll make a really strong statement and they'll post it because they know it's going to be provocative. And it gets them a ton of engagement. Sometimes it ends up losing them followers. People know their name more. And that's just being a provocateur. It has a use, right? Like, provocation is good. I think people do need to say controversial things sometimes. But if you're doing that just to get clicks and you don't even believe what you're saying, you just want to make people mad, like the Pagan Lives Matter girl, okay? I think that's a great example. There was this woman who made a series of TikToks called Pagan Lives Matter about how Black Lives Matter was a bad
I thought
term.
you said pagan limes, like those lemon BDSM people.
Yeah. But yeah, so Pagan Lives Matter was this girl who said that Black Lives Matter was not encompassing because Black pagans still went home and their families were Christian and bullied them for being pagan, and pagans in general face discrimination. Which is true, but Jesus fucking Christ, calling it Pagan Lives Matter is like a really bad way to put it. It's capitalizing on a pre-existing movement, and of course, people were very angry about this girl. People got a ton of responses. I think she got like hundreds of thousands of views on this. And she ended up saying some really questionable stuff. But it gained her a ton of engagement, and she was like kind of riding a high, and you can kind of tell. So a lot of people do these kind of provocative things to get clicks. And by the way, this whole thing didn't even work. It made people like the girl who was fired from Panera for being pagan like look like a joke, and generally it was kind of a little racist at points and pretty horrible. But people do stuff like this because they know it'll make people mad. A great thing to do is like pretend, like make like tarot is closed or something like that, or say like something really crazy out there about like, you know, you're not a real witch if you like I recently saw a post that said you can't do spells on your period and pregnant people have no magic, like stuff like that, right? You say something super out there, or especially the people who did the whole thing like Moldavite killed my family type stuff. It gets you a ton of engagement, but there's no real value to it, and it's just problematic and annoying and just makes people angry, and it makes the community a lot more toxic.
Well, it's why when we talked about grifters, when we talked about the alt-right, like we've said multiple times, if people are being a problem, the best way you can solve it is just like, don't talk about them, don't use their name, don't comment, don't like. You could even just block so they don't come up anymore, so you don't even give them a view. Like if it's on TikTok, you don't give them a single view by like scrolling past, seeing their face and going, oh fuck. Like there's still a view there because you've still viewed the video, even if it's only for 1 second, that's still technically a view. Like just completely disengaging from them, blocking them. That's why that is so powerful. The whole point is they want to be controversial. The whole point is to get clicks and views and get seen, because inevitably, unfortunately, as much as they're going to get hate, it is the case a fair amount of the time, not always, but some, that when controversy happens, people get more viewers. It's the same thing we saw. I don't know how many of you are tuned into like the beauty guru shit that was going on a year or two ago, but like, you know, when Trisha Paytas was making all those like really, really, really out there videos, she would still get subscribers. When Jeffree Star would do something bad and say something shitty, he would get a bunch of subscribers. When Shane Dawson would do something really weird and kind of shitty, he would get a bunch of viewers and a bunch of subscribers, and even people hate watching his videos. Like, the whole reason that they're able to have these platforms is because people talk about them, they make videos about them, they spread their name, and they talk about, did you hear this thing that this person did? If you do the opposite and basically try to get people to ignore them, you encourage people not to engage, you say just leave them alone, we don't even have to talk about it, they're just an idiot and we don't need to waste energy on them, that helps that problem go away. Unless it's like, you know, they're directly attacking people and it needs to be addressed. For the most part, just leaving them alone takes that power away. People do things to be inflammatory because they want the clout. That's it.
Yeah, I don't even think these people believe it half the time. I think some of them do, but I think some of them don't.
People are just clout chasing on social media, and they're using the algorithm to do it, and then they're saying they're covering it up, and they're like, oh, the algorithm egregore and this and that, and you know. But at the end of the day, yeah, sure, there are egregores, there are thought forms, there's things that you can do, and it's a lot more chaotic, and there's things you can do. And I've spoken about it a number of times to a number of people, but at the end of the day, a lot of these people want to be famous on the internet. They're chasing that clout. If you're saying these statements, it's because you have an ulterior motive, and that motive is probably financially related. And these are the same people that are saying you're not a real witch if you're not into crypto. Well, if your idea of occultism is money at the end, we have a very different idea of what occultism is and why we're
You're kind
in
of
it.
telling on yourself.
What?
Right?
What?
You're telling on yourself when you say that.
Yeah. Like, that's cool. Like, you're a capitalist. Like, just say that. Just say you hate poor people and let's move on.
I mean, it helps to lead into like the fake woke activism too, where it's other inflammatory stuff. So there's inflammatory stuff like having a really bad take like Pagan Lives Matter, and that directly leads into the fake woke activism, which also gives people a lot of clout. People who bring up like, you know, if they do something shitty and somebody says, hey, that was pretty shitty, immediately saying, well, I'm disabled, I'm queer, I'm whatever, like I'm this kind of minority, to like excuse it. It's just fake woke activism of like, you can't fucking criticize me, or going after people for stuff. Like, Robin had people go after her when she was like, you can give water as an offering. And she literally had people say, well, what about Flint, Michigan? Lilith Dorsey, same thing. When she talked about water in her water magic book, people came after her. The fake woke activism of, you're a problem for this thing that's not a problem, but by you, and I had to explain this to somebody the other day, the reason that smaller accounts will use bigger accounts' names in their videos, why they'll tag them, is because by using that name, it gets them more clicks, it gets them more views, it gets them more attention, because the algorithm knows this name is associated with like lots of views and this lots of activity. So by you mentioning it, you're getting at least a portion of it because it thinks that you are involving this person and this person is popular. Therefore, your views usually go up. So people will start drama with bigger creators, and it's just to get attention because that's using the algorithm the way the algorithm is designed, like with technology and code. Like, it's designed that way on purpose, and they're using it that way. They're doing the fake woke activism just the same way to just get clout.
So my final thoughts are, working with the algorithm is not posting hot takes about how pagan lives matter and then getting people mad at you and being like, ah, yes, I am a wizard. Gnosis. It is a complex thing. Algorithm magic is like a really new idea, and a lot of people posting about it all got it from kind of the same two sources and are just kind of LARPing for the rest. So it's something that's not really like, solidly like in a paradigm yet. Like, the idea of techno magic or whatever is like super new and is something that's not really fully been developed. It's something that we're still working out and like discovering. It's not, the only way. As well, like, there's so many practices that literally have nothing to do with technology and do not care about technology. A lot of people who have earth-based practices could literally, care less. As well, like, there's no universal one practice. All of occultism is an umbrella term, right? occultism is not a single thing, right? There's no like Catholic Church of occultism, right? Where a bunch of like super loosely defined things all thrown together. We're not one like orthodoxy. So to make any broad statement about all occultists is kind of ridiculous and overly simplistic. In general, I think like try to spend some time off of TikTok and Twitter and breathe and focus on your personal practice and your personal goals, because your goals can be very wide and varied. And I think we should think about what you're doing, right? Like the occult does not necessarily have to be a capitalistic endeavor for you. It can be about discovering your soul, your true will, and so many things. And you should think about what you want with your practice rather than doing what you are told. Question everything you believe.
My final thoughts are somebody trying to dictate what your practice should or shouldn't be, or whether or not your practice is valid because you don't use a tool, is maybe one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. Don't listen to that. Not everybody needs to use every tool that's out there, and if you don't resonate with a certain tool, you don't have to use it. Usually, it's so funny because we see the argument the opposite way. If you do use something, you're wrong, but you don't have to. And you know, it's also just really tone deaf. You don't have to feel bad because you're not doing crypto. You don't have to feel bad because you're not using technology. If it doesn't resonate with you, or if you can't afford it, there's no shame in that. Magic is for everybody, and saying that you have to have money to be able to do magic is incredibly fucking stupid, tone deaf, classist, and privileged. And you don't have to listen to anybody who has that stupid fucking take.
You can listen to the podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, and Spotify. So support us for extended shows, pre-shows, a special Sabbath episodes, and a lot of extra lovely content.
And you also get thanks if you're a $10 tier or up. So thank you to our long list of patrons. We're eventually going to have to change this, but for now, we're here. Victoria, The Eclectic Gemini, Sophia, Ree, Nico, Melissa, Maria, Liam, Lee, Kat, Kai? I think it's Kai. Could be K. Could be wrong. Jessica, Dungareed Pagan, Doitsu, Melissa, Jay, Evan, Barry, and Amy Momster. Thanks, you guys. As always, we really appreciate you, and we're doing better at remembering you. So be proud of me. In our hearts forever.
So this has been Georgina Rose. You can find me under .darling DAAT on YouTube, Twitch. I just joined Twitch. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Patreon.
And this has been Nike. You can find me at Warrior Witch Nike kind of everywhere. YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. I've also just joined Twitch, TikTok. I also have a website where I write articles. I'm getting back to writing articles, so we'll see how often I get to do that. But yeah, find me in places and stuff.
Thank you for listening.
Non-tangible thing grows where you are, it exists where you are.
An intentional journey to open up the pathways
To connect us to something bigger. It helps everybody in the equation.
has been the magic of the people, and it's passed from person to person.
You have to follow through. You have to do the thing. Like happy, safe place.
Is that your logic, or was that something you were told?
Focus on your craft and your practice.